So time and time again, couples will come to me and say they feel a bit silly. They'll say what we were arguing about was really silly, but it just escalated. Okay, and they end up in furious arguments, where people walk out, there's doors being slammed and all sorts. And so a lot of the work is helping them to understand what's going on, and they can't understand. They think we were arguing about the dishes, or we were arguing about ordering pizza, or we were arguing about what to order for Eid, something that seems trivial. But what's really happening is that usually people are not arguing about the pizza or what to order or the dishes. They're arguing about value systems, okay? So they're clashing on their value systems. And one of the things that I have to do is help them to understand how they're processing, how they're communicating, because communication is a massive barrier. And if communication isn't good between the couple and understanding, then obviously, arguments erupt and then we end up in the counselling. And so I think this will be helpful for anybody, because I don't know any couple that doesn't fight. We all have our days where we have a disagreement or a misunderstanding. And one of the things, I just want to point out one small aspect of how things escalate, and it's about how we interpret information. Okay, so a lot of the times I find that couples who are successful, in the sense that the ones that are masterful at understanding each other, is when their spouse is talking to them, when they're getting some information, they're saying something to them, the other person, the recipient, so if imagine the husband saying something to the wife will often hear it in a good way, okay? So she'll be able to interpret that my husband means something good, that he's not criticizing me, he's being helpful, he's suggesting something that's going to be beneficial. So as she hears it in a way that it's shaped it to benefit her. So when she responds in that way. She responds in a good way. Now, where couples kind of end up with these escalating fights is because one of the parts of that is because the husband will come, he will say something, okay, how come you ordered margarita pizza? We could have ordered with doner on it or something like that. And the wife hears that as a criticism. She hears that as a complaint. She hears that she's inadequate. She hears that, she's not done something right again. She hears that he's better. So can you see in the first example where she sees it as helpful, it's a suggestion, he means well, he wants good for her. And in the second example, it's negative, it's that he doesn't want good for me, it's that I've done something wrong. On one hand, they think that like whatever he's saying, it's as if I'm at fault. They read it that way. So the information, the thing that they said at the beginning might be the very same thing, but in how it's interpreted is very different. And so we want to look at kind of how couples get to that. Why do some couples interpret information well and others don't? And there's a few reasons for that. Okay, number one is perhaps they've had a history of criticism and complaint and being blamed, and they learn that I have to defend myself, that something he's going to say is going to be an attack, is going to be a criticism, is going to be finding fault, and therefore I have to put my defense up. And so she will come up with something like, do you know better? Why didn't you order it then? Can I not do it? Am I not good enough? Do you think I'm stupid that I can't order a pizza? Well, if you wanted doner, why didn't you tell me before? And he's like, why do you talk to me like that? All I suggested was that you could have got a doner one. And they don't see that there's an underlying pattern of mistrust going on. And then with the other couple, they don't have that. They've most likely had a relationship where they haven't felt criticised, where they felt like, my husband wants good for me, that he doesn't think that I'm inadequate, he doesn't think that I can't do something. So when he suggests about the pizza, it's like, okay, yeah, actually, doner would have been great. And if she doesn't order it, she's confident in herself to say, actually, you're right, we could have ordered doner. I've ordered the margarita today, next time. And he says, yeah, that's fine. And it just flows along and they're just getting on. So that's one of the reasons, you have to look at your history. Have there been occasions of criticism? Have there been occasions where you have picked out faults? And if you have, then you have to kind of retract. And one of the ways to do that is to be able to look at, in yourselves as a couple, do we give positive reinforcements to each other? And one of the ways to do that is, once you're aware that that's happening, is for the spouse, the one that's receiving the information, to say, hey, can we pause a moment? I know that you said this, but the story that I told myself is that you're saying that I'm inadequate, I'm not saying that that's what you said, but right now this is what I'm thinking. Is that correct? And allow your spouse to clarify. He can either say, yes, I thought all of those things, which most likely it isn't. Most likely you'll find that he isn't, and it's mostly our fears that come up. Or he'll say, no, that's not what I meant. I just meant that, it might be nice to have doner, but if you haven't ordered doner, it's fine. The second reason that's, this type of communication error can happen is our own inadequacies. So it's a combination. We come into the marriage, unfulfilled. We think that our spouse is going to give us something, and we look for that in that person. And every time it's not there, we're slightly disappointed. And then we're slightly disappointed again. And this disappointment builds up. And we think it's to do with our spouse, but it isn't. It's to do with ourselves. And so we have to really be honest with ourselves and say, did I have that part of me already? Was I already feeling, like I'm not good enough, or that I can't make decisions, or that I'm somebody who's going to be criticized a lot? And you have to see whether that was in your childhood as well. Perhaps you had a parent who was critical. And if you do have that, then that's going to play a part in how you view your spouse. So it's important to do both parts. Look at your own self to say, the quality of my thoughts, are they accurate? And if they're not, have I checked them with my spouse? Check it out, because you could be wrong. Who knows? Shaitan is there constantly whispering to us, constantly trying to cause fights. We could be wrong. How do we know at any given time? Even if we've been criticized before, it could be that time it's not criticism. It's a genuine, helping hand, like, hey, why don't we do this? And once we get past that, it enables us to see each other without that clouding. You want to be able to have that flow. Remember what the masterful couples do. When the information is given to them, they interpret it well.